Blonde jokes. In a fancy Paris restaurant, there is a magical wish-granting mirror. But it only grants wishes if you tell the truth. If you lie, you disappear. One day, a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead enter the restaurant and decide to try out the mirror. The brunette goes first. "I think I'm the smartest woman on earth." Poof! She disappears. The redhead goes up to try. "I think I'm the prettiest woman on earth." Poof! She disappears. The blonde goes up. "I think." Poof! Marriage jokes. Three women talk about their husband's performance as lovers. The first woman says, "My husband is a marriage counselor, so he always buys me flowers and candy before we make love." The second woman says, "My husband is a motorcycle mechanic. He likes to play rough and use leather sometimes." The third woman shakes her head and says, "My husband works for an internet company. He just sits on the edge of the bed and tells me how great it's going to be when I get it." Blonde jokes. Q. Did you hear about the blonde skydiver? A. She missed the Earth. Dirty jokes. Several years ago, Great Britain funded a study to determine why the head on a man's penis is larger than the shaft. The study took 2 years and cost over $1.2 million. The study concluded that the reason the head of a man's penis is larger than the shaft was to provide the man with more pleasure during sex. After the results were published, France decided to conduct their own study on the same subject. They were convinced that the results of the British study was incorrect. After 3 years of research at a cost of in excess of $2 million, the French researchers concluded that the head of a man's penis is larger than the shaft to provide the woman with more pleasure during sex. When the results of the French study were released, Canada decided to conduct their own study. The Canucks didn't really trust British or French studies. So, after nearly 3 weeks of intensive research and a cost of right around $75, the Canadian study was complete. They concluded that the reason the head on a man's penis is larger than the shaft is to prevent your hand from flying off and hitting you in the forehead. Blonde jokes. 4 blondes drive to a bar in their old pickup truck. 3 sit in the cab and 1 sits in the bed of the truck. The 3 blondes go into the bar and order a round of shots. Almost an hour later, the 4th blonde finally joins them. "Where have you been?" they ask. Clearly frustrated, she responds, "Well, you all forgot to open the tailgate." Dirty jokes. A man suffered a serious heart attack while shopping in a store. The store clerk called 911 when they saw him collapse to the floor. The paramedics rushed the man to the nearest hospital where he had emergency open heart bypass surgery. He awakened from the surgery to find himself in the care of nuns at the Catholic hospital. A nun was seated next to his bed holding a clipboard loaded with several forms, and a pen. She asked him how he was going to pay for his treatment. €1 Do you have health insurance? €1 she asked. He replied in a raspy voice, €1 No health insurance. €1 The nun asked, €1 Do you have money in the bank? €1 he replied, €1 No money in the bank. €1 Do you have a relative who could help you with the payments? €1 asked the irritated nun. He said, €1 I only have a spinster sister, and she is a nun. €1 The nun became agitated and announced loudly, €1 Nuns are not spinsters. Nuns are married to God. €1 The patient replied, €1 Perfect. Send the bill to my brother-in-law. €1 Marriage jokes. A man had 6 children and was very proud of his achievement. He was so proud of himself that he started calling his wife, mother of 6, in spite of her objections. One night they went to a party. He decided that it was time to go home, and wanted to find out if his wife is ready to leave as well. He shouted at the top of his voice, "Shall we go home, mother of six?" His wife, irritated by her husband's lack of discretion, shouted back, "Anytime you're ready, father of four." Marriage jokes. A man finds a genie lamp. He rubs the lamp and a genie comes out and says, "I may grant you 3 wishes, but your wife gets double." The man wishes for a new car. The genie gives him a new car and the man's wife 2 new cars. The man then wishes for a new house. The genie gives him a new house and the man's wife 2 new houses. The man then says, "For my final wish, I wish to be beaten to half-death." Dirty jokes. One day there was a blind man walking down the street and he smelled oranges, so he bought some fruit. He smelled some pastries, so he bought some donuts. Then he walked past a fish market, took a hard sniff, and said, "Hello ladies." Alcohol jokes. There was a guy in a bar one night that got drunk, I mean really drunk. When the bar closed, he got up to go home. As he stumbled out the door, he saw a nun walking on the sidewalk. So he stumbled over to the nun and punched her in the face. Well, the nun was totally surprised, but before she could do or say anything, he punched her again. This time she fell down and he stumbled over to her and kicked her in the butt. Then he picked her up and threw her into a wall. By this time the nun was pretty weak and couldn't move very much. So then he leaned over her, put his face right next to hers and said, "Not very f-kin strong tonight, are you Batman?"